And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move it there. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move it there. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move it there. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move it there. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here.
And then the worst president in the history of our country.
Hey there, gang. I think it's about 7:30. I'm about to bring the gang on here. I wanted to show that clip because it's historic. It just happened over 2 hours ago. And it is the 13th of June. It is 2024. I'm not playing any music this time because YouTube gets all upset with me and takes down my videos and threatens me with strikes, even though we're not monetized. The U.S. debt, before we bring on the gang, $34.902 trillion. Guys, the debt is moving up very slowly right now because it's an election year. Everyone's watching this. So that's the reason why the debt is not moving as fast as it did, as per se, like last year. You guys remember we'd have $80-90 billion spent in a week. I meant insane numbers like that, and we're just not seeing that. This is a very slow crawl right now. Okay, let's get the gang on board and start our chat. So, of course, we have Liberty Revolutionary with us. We have Voodoo Queen with us. We have Shane with us. And we also have the ever-popular Isaac with us. And before we get started with big conversation here, I just want to, because it's historic, it just happened, and it brought back a lot of memories for me from 1981. And yes, I'm old enough to remember 1981. President Trump was shot today, but it was a grazing wound, and it hit the upper part of his right ear. And that's what actually happened today. So people like Matt Wallace on Twitter are literally saying they can prove this was a CIA hit. So that's big news, too. Now, Matt Wallace, basically is a journalist, and he reports in a lot of places, including Twitter. So, but I wouldn't report things like that before you literally release the evidence, Matt, just in case you get whacked before you can release your evidence. Remember Andrew Breitbart. Okay, so yes, it did happen today. It brought back memories of 1981. I believe it was March 30th. That was a Monday. I actually remember that. And it was about 5:30 in the afternoon. I got home from T-ball practice, and my mom had the TV on. And, the President Reagan had just been shot. So that's the last time this has happened, gang. So it's quite a while ago that someone has actually shot at a president or a former president. But but Trump is okay. So for everyone, there are two people in the audience. One was definitely killed. Another one is in critical condition. So prayers for these people. I do understand the shooter has been shot and is no longer with us. So we'll not be able to get any information out of that person. But that's usually the way these kinds of things go. But I wanted to, bring that up and then have a little bit of discussion on the shooting of President Trump before we went on with basically the Missouri ballot, Missouri primaries coming up literally around the corner on August 6th. This is very important stuff. I'm not saying that Trump shooting is not worthy of coverage. I'm not saying that at all. And I know we're not going to get high numbers tonight. We're not going to get a lot of people watching us tonight because most people are watching coverage on the shooting of Trump that just happened like 2.5 hours ago. Okay. Anyone want to add to the discussion about Trump getting shot? Any more information they've heard?
I think you pretty well covered it.
Okay, gotcha. And by the way,
the fact that
go ahead.
I was say aside from the fact that he just kind of effectively stood back up, shook his fist, and gave him the good old "you."
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So yeah, that in itself is quite amazing. But once again, it was a grazing wound. So basically, he wasn't injured in any way that would prevent him from getting up and shaking his fist in the air and saying "fight, fight, fight."
To be blunt, though, from the angle that he was hit, because I saw someone shared a picture of an aerial view of that area. There's a stage and then the building that's out over here and directly parallel with the stage. And the guy was on that other roof over there, shot across there and fired at the exact time Trump turned his head, so it only grazed his ear.
Yeah.
His head were turned any way, one way or the other. There's plenty of real estate that would have been on the side of his head that would have been hit. Yep.
And so I'm looking at some of the comments here on YouTube. And Sam I Am, SMC, let's see, Hunter, the Parmesan cheese expert. Renee Misty is with us. So at any rate, apparently Misty was saying it's July. So I must have said the wrong month or something. So, yes, it is the 13th of July. It is 2024. That's a date for the record. By the way, our live streams are actually on Missouri Liberty Radio on Sundays and on Wednesdays. So that's why I always say the date, because it's really hard to convey the date on radio without saying what the date is. So that's the reason why. But Misty says reports that Trump will be at the UFC fight tonight. So that's, thank God. I mean, it's a superficial wound. And that sounds like something Trump would do too. He gets shot, and, a couple hours later, he shows up for the UFC, fight night. He's just got a little bandage on his ear, and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm fine. I'm fine." I said it was June 13th. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Misty.
Oh, yeah.
So
you must have been thinking about June bugs.
Yeah. Well, June bug genocide. We'll talk about that later. And let's see. Warrior Class 3 says it stings really bad to get hit in the ear like that. And I have no doubt about that. But they can probably give him a local painkiller so he can go on and do other things, basically without, stringing him out on something really heavy. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing that, basically an attempt was made on Trump's life. Trump walks away, apparently one person in the audience dead, another one in critical condition, and the shooter himself dead as well. I don't want to bring up information about the shooter right now because, basically it's not something that I have direct access to right now, and I don't want to be, reading stuff offline, basically during the live stream, during the precious time we have. And that's another thing. I need to end it at 9 o'clock tonight, and that's because Junebug genocide. That's code word for this big operation that we run on our property that where we manually pull the June bugs off of our fruit trees. And because we don't use pesticides or insecticides or anything else like that, and we're trying to affect the ecosystem on our property, basically 2 years of literally taking the June bugs should have pretty big results for us in the third year. So, and this is some really good advice we got from some pretty smart people. So we're in the second year of this. And, okay. So, but at any rate, thank you very much, everyone, for chiming in. And as we say, Trump is, pretty tough cookie. And sounds like he's going to be fine. We have nothing to worry about, as far as the shooting goes, as far as the, Trump's condition. So, but there's two people, one killed and one in critical condition because of that shooter at that rally there. And I would love to hear how that person got a gun in there. So apparently they had some pretty good equipment, but, yep. So at any rate, it is what it is. And if, in fact, I'll check the other platforms real quick, see if anyone has any questions or comments. Ozark Freedom Gal is chiming in. Let's see. Hi from St. Louis. CL Moody is with us. Hey there, CL Moody. Thank you for joining us. And we'll get to the big stuff here in just a little bit here. We're talking about Missouri primary elections tonight. That's what we're going to be talking about. That is something that I think is incredibly important. And I think that the perspective of grassroots is really needed here, I think, because there's some very slick advertising going out. But we're talking about a grassroots group that actually goes up to Jefferson City and interacts with the politicians up there. And so everyone's going to have different opinions. And by the way, and I'm going to state this one more time, the Missouri Freedom Initiative does not endorse candidates. We do not have an official endorsement. And so that's a policy decision that Jimmy D or Jim Wendell and I decided when we started the initiative. And it was something we both agreed on, and we spent a lot of time talking about it too, the pros and cons, actually. We both had yellow legal pads sitting down in my media room. I remember that, writing the pros and cons of endorsements. And the cons outweighed the pros, actually, for endorsing candidates, for us to continue to have some kind of effect or impact up in Jefferson City. So, but at the same time, if you guys have noticed, this went back to the Truth, Money, and Freedom, podcast days on YouTube. I have no problem telling everyone who I'm voting for. And I get asked a lot, by the way. And to date, I've now had 19 emails. Last night when I was writing up my email, I had 18. This morning there was another one. 19 emails actually asking me who I'm voting for. So I'm going to share that with you tonight, and I'll give you my reasons why. But I encourage everyone to talk about who they're voting for and why. And this is, just a normal part of the process. If we want to affect change in Missouri, we have, ideas on how we can get that done, and the people that would probably be more, let's just say, people that are more than adequate to handle a task like that versus people who are not. And and this is not besmirching their characters. And we will go after some people's characters tonight, but these are people who aren't going to win election anyway. And these are bad actors from Jefferson City that we're going to talk about tonight as well. So if you want the drama, the intrigue, all the stuff that people are addicted to DC politics over, look no further than the Missouri legislature. We have it here in spades. We have it here in absolute, complete, utter spades. In fact, I often think that Washington, D.C. learned about intrigue and drama from the Missouri legislature because we've got it pretty bad here. I'm sure most states do. Okay, before I get started, Isaac is with us tonight. And Isaac is going to talk about a specific race in a specific district in Missouri where he found some data that contradicts Missouri Right to Life's endorsement. This is actually really important. This is groundbreaking, and you're hearing it here first. In fact, not more than an hour ago, he got off the phone with someone with Missouri Right to Life, informing them about someone they had endorsed and what that person does for a living. Isaac, you've got the floor.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Pat, for teaching me how important it is to actually be engaged on a local level with politics. Because, had I not been influenced by you and the work that you've done, I probably would have never gone to this meeting. I was here in my local district in Salem with local candidates running for state rep and county seats and stuff like that. There was a District 120 is where I'm from, Salem, Sullivan, Cuba area. If you're in those areas and listening, there's a man running by the name of John Hukin, and he is a man with very deep pockets and a lot of very old guard in a lot of local politics in this region. He's running to fill Ron Copeland's seat. He is, to give you an idea of what he does for a living.
Ron Copeland, by the way, is a representative. Is that correct? So he's
okay. House District 120.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ron decided not to run again, and John Hukin is the guy that is trying to fill his seat. Copeland is big in Kehoe's camp, if that gives you any idea of where he stands aligned with the Republicans in Jeff City. Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Hukin, for a living, is a pharmacist for, I believe, CVS, Barnes Jewish Christian, a couple other big pharmacies in the area. And one of the things I've not been able to hear a solid answer on is his position on life. Where do you stand on abortion? So I straight up asked him. We had a chance to ask the candidates some questions. And I asked him, well, when do you believe life begins? He goes, it begins at conception. And I said, well, you said you were a pharmacist. He said that. I'm like, have you ever profited from, taken part in, fulfilled prescriptions for drugs that would terminate a pregnancy? And then he went ahead and said, well, yes, absolutely. I've done things for this drug and this drug and this drug and this one in this case and this one in that one. We sell Plan B, we sell this, and here's how it all happens. And I'm like, so just to clarify, because he was very blatant and brazen about it, like no qualms at all. I'm like, so you believe, but you're pro-life? Yes, but you believe that what you're doing is wrong? Well, yeah, he says. So I'm like, so just to clarify, you are taking part in, facilitating, and profiting from activities that you believe personally are the murder of babies. And he said, yes, I am. I was kind of taken back because I was expecting some political answer and some workaround or some justification for it. But he came out and just plainly said it. Yes, I do take part in that. And that was after being asked about, because he's a pharmacist. Well, what's your opinion on, mandates of, those kinds, which I won't mention here to prevent censorship and whatnot.
Yep. And
he said, well, yeah, I had to take it because, I was administering X amount of them and blah, blah, blah. And I just had to do it for my job. Plain and simple. For him, it was just a matter of doing my job. And his claim was, yeah, I've done it a lot. It's just part of it. But I'm like, but you're pro-life. You sat on a pregnancy resource board. Like, that blew my mind too. I'm like, so at night you're pro-life, but during the day you have no problem openly confessing to what I'm doing is murdering babies. So I texted some people, and it got who had contacts with Missouri Right to Life, and they just got off the phone about an hour and a half ago with one of the top guys up there, and they are beginning to do some investigation looking at investigating like a press release, potentially pulling some things. They haven't decided because he has to pass it up the chain, but there is an investigation going on into him about what he said.
Well, and by the way, Isaac, thank you so much for this. The fact of the matter is, if a pharmacist is actually, distributing RU-486 or any other similar drugs, the day after pill is what they call it, and actually proclaims to be a pro-life person, but is a pharmacist distributing these drugs just because it's his job, basically, it's, I was just following orders,
That's what the Nazis said when they were exterminating Jews.
That's
Hey,
correct.
I was just doing what I was told to do.
That's right. I was doing what my commanding officer told me to do. I was doing what the job told me what to do. So at any rate, if he chooses, to be a pharmacist and he is handing out drugs that are specifically designed to abort babies, then I don't think he should be receiving the Missouri Right to Life endorsement. Indeed, I do have criticisms of Missouri Right to Life, and this is the gang I have run with for decades. And I'm going to say this, and once again, this isn't to alienate them. I have friends in Missouri Right to Life. But the fact is they did not endorse Bill Eigel. They endorsed Jay Ashcroft. Jay Ashcroft has never voted on anything pro-life before. Bill has. By the way, everyone fills out a questionnaire, but a politician that has a voting history, that's a double bonus because you can find out if they're full of crap pretty quick. And Bill Eigel has been 100% pro-life voting in the Senate. 100%. Not even a ding on him. But he didn't get the endorsement because Missouri Right to Life felt that Bill Eigel couldn't possibly win, the election. Jay Ashcroft, his campaign is dropping like a stone, and we can get into that more tonight later. And by the way, I'm friends with Jay. So I have nothing really bad to say about Jay at all. I just wish Jay would talk more about the corruption in Jefferson City like Bill Eigel is. That's what really speaks to me, gang. If anyone were to ask me, why is it you're voting for Bill Eigel? It's because he has the guts to talk about what we see as grassroots up in Jefferson City all the time. And that's the money flowing through, the politicians, the corporations, the lobbyists. He has the guts to talk about it, and he talks about cutting the state budget. So this is how you start draining the swamp in Jefferson City, is by cutting the budget. Because a lot of this money that's flowing through the system goes to these swamp creatures. And when you start cutting the budget, there's less money for the swamp creatures. They'll have to move on to Illinois or something like that, basically, if they want to continue being swamp creatures. So that's Missouri Right to Life was remiss in not doing, they should have, if they really wanted to endorse Jay Ashcroft, they could have, but they could have done a double endorsement, and they have done it before. But the official reason given, and this is by, the PAC manager and spokesman, his name is Dave Plemons. He said they were worried with a double endorsement that may open the door for Crystal, the Democrat, to actually win the governorship, Crystal Quaid. And that was the official reason. It didn't make sense to me at the time. It still doesn't make sense to me now, and it's been almost a year since that endorsement happened. So Missouri Right to Life made a mistake by not endorsing Bill. They should make some kind of public statement at this point that they should endorse Bill, or at the very least say they have absolutely nothing against Bill because he's been a pro-life voter. 100% pro-life, by the way, gang, for Bill Eigel. 100%. Same thing with Mike Moon. And we'll talk more about Mike later on in this. But Mike has the endorsement, so he's got nothing to worry about. So would it be the first time that a governor won in Missouri without the endorsement? No. Greitens did not get the endorsement, and he won as governor. And, of course, we've had Democrats like Jay Nixon who weren't endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. So does Missouri Right to Life endorsement important? Yes. Is it relevant? Yes. We are a pro-life state. But it doesn't mean that Missouri Right to Life doesn't make mistakes. And it sounds by what Isaac brought to us today that they've made a mistake. And so it's not the first one in this election cycle. They also made a mistake by not endorsing Bill Eigel. Okay. So thank you very much for that. Actually, that's important for us to know. And in fact, there's probably going to be lots more stories because literally up until the primary, and we will be, and by the way, we won't be on Gilded anymore after tonight. So, but watch for emails for information on that in this coming up week for those of you who join us, basically in the live streams and actually come in and, be part of the crew here. And I appreciate all of you, by the way. When you guys come in, that is really neat. I appreciate all of our viewers, too, by the way. Hello to everyone on Twitter. And it looks like Rumble. We've got quite a few viewers on Rumble tonight as well, so thank you for joining us. And, guys, we're going to start delving into, and by the way, we got a lot of stuff coming in on, okay, this was all about Trump. Okay, gotcha. And let's see. And also, Grande says, it's good to tune into a stream. It's been a bit. That's my fault. I've not been around. And so I apologize to you guys. I mean, part of this is my dad is very sick, so I'm going to Minnesota. I'm helping out politicians with their campaigns, politicians that I believe in. It has nothing to do with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. It's just me personally. And then on top of which, I've got real work to do, too. So, that the kind of stuff that actually puts food on the table. So I do have to break, from my political habits to actually fund my political habits. And so that's the work cycle. But I'm going to show you this real quick here. And I'm going to hold it up here so hopefully it actually comes through all right. But you guys can see I've got a sample ballot filled out. This is me personally. This has nothing to do with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. This has to do with me personally and who I'm voting for. So I'll go through this, and this is Republican Party ballot for Christian County, Missouri, which is where I live. So I'm going to read them off to you real quick here, and I'll provide screenshots for you guys later on here. For United States Senator Josh Hawley, that's the only selection. For governor, I have Bill Eigel, and we'll go through decision-making process here in a little bit. Lieutenant Governor Tim Baker, Secretary of State is Denny Hoskins, State Treasurer is Lori Rook. I have not decided on Attorney General yet. I think you guys know about that. I will have a decision before next week, though. Okay, let's see. Representative District 7, of course, that's Eric Burleson. Senator District 29, Mike Moon. Let's see. For State Representative, Bob Titus. Circuit Judge, Circuit 38 is Laura Johnson. Western District Commissioner is Michael White. And for Sheriff, Brad Cole, because he's the only choice. I will do a write-in for Brad Cole, though, on the actual ballot. I don't really appreciate Brad Cole. But, okay, so I have been asked by people in emails, and by the way, I don't want to dominate the conversation. So if anyone wants to talk about who they're voting for or why, please let me know.
Go ahead. I can start off. I found a sample ballot on KY3's website.
Okay.
So for me, it looks exactly the same all the way down for state level stuff. I'm still undecided on Attorney General. As far as I'm in U.S. Representative District 8.
Okay. And
Jason Smith is the incumbent, and I am definitely not going to be voting for him. I've covered plenty of those reasons on this before. I'm backing Grant Heithold. You met him a couple of weeks ago at Travis's meetup.
I did.
So, definitely the underdog in that race, but that's who I'm putting my backing behind. For District 120, I am backing Lancer Blair. And for people that, know my work about the water pipelines and stuff, Lancer Blair was fired from the Department of Natural Resources once he decided to run for state rep. He is directly tied to fighting off where the UN has their placards on trees in the national forest, where they are planning a lot of these like critical mineral projects, where the U.S. Forestry Service, the State Forestry Service, the United Nations, and there's other organizations that are investing millions into this region in south central Missouri, where this 14 county region is, where they're planning all this big, major, evil Agenda 2030 stuff. He is directly fighting that. His name is Lancer Blair, good, rock solid conservative, God-fearing, church-going. I like him a lot. As far as others, that's the state office. Most everything else is county. Denver Ellis is a county commissioner. He works closely with Lancer Blair and is wanting to fight off a lot of this as well. So it's kind of a pretty local one. But outside of that, I don't have really, sheriff. The incumbent's Bob Wells, and I've been very happy with him. So keeping him, but everything else is either one party races. Assessor, I'm no objections really to either candidate. That's pretty much where I'm at on those, but definitely Lancer Blair for state rep in this instance.
Okay, thank you for that. Warrior Class 3 says it's been very difficult to get info on candidates for state representative for District 141. I got your email on that, Warrior Class, and I'm going to do what I can to help you with it this week. So I'm going to contact some people I know and get some background on the 3 people on the Republican ballot for District 141. And so I only do so much of this, gang, because, like I said, I have other things on my plate as well. But I will help get as much information out as quickly as possible. And also, I want to let you know, Aaron Dorr sent me an email and has given me permission to use his criteria for vetting the Second Amendment for representatives and senators in the state of Missouri. So I will be taking his videos and putting them up on the Missouri Freedom Initiative channel. So I have permission to do so. And thank you very much to Aaron Dorr for allowing for that. But I will also be doing a series of short videos up until the primary on very specific people. One of them is going to be Dean Plocker. Now, we've talked ad nauseum about Dean Plocker for about 4 years in the Missouri Freedom Initiative. And the fact is, he is termed out. Now, he is termed out as a representative, is now running for Secretary of State. He's not campaigning. I have no idea if he's even bringing in money for that. And there's no signs up for Dean Plocker that anyone has seen in the initiative around the state of Missouri. So I'm kind of curious what the heck Dean is doing. I think Dean is accepting the fact that he is so politically damaged that he can't win office at this time. Hey, and Catherine Dreyer has joined us. Hey there, Catherine.
Hey.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah, go ahead,
Hey,
Isaac.
Patrick, I just put in the Gilded chat a list of all of Dean Plocker's donations and where they went to, and the people who they went to as state reps. So
Okay.
you want that information, I put that there in the chat.
Gotcha, thank you. So basically, it's a garage sale going on from his PAC right now is what it looks like.
I think these were from a couple of years ago.
Oh, from a couple of years ago. Okay, gotcha. So
Or
that's
at
not
least
current.
within the past year. So I know there are a lot of people in here that are current. Ron Copeland, Benny Cook, they're both in there.
Yep.
Gosh, there's a bunch of people, but these are the people that took money directly from his PAC this year, or
Okay.
within the past year or so.
Gotcha. All right, good to know. And Catherine, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
you know what we're talking about tonight is, of course, the primaries and what's going on with
Yeah, I
those.
saw the email.
Yep.
So that
And so
listening.
I was going to bring in real quick, for those of you who have not been with us long enough to remember our group and involvement with SEPA when we first got started as a group, technically in 2019. But I want to talk a little bit about Mike Kehoe, because we were there, we saw this when it was going on. In order to pass SEPA, and Senator Eigels talked about this very recently, leadership in the Senate said, we have to get this gas tax through. If we don't do it, we're not going to get SEPA. And
That was in 21.
that was in 21. That is correct. And Mike Kehoe was the major player behind the scenes lobbying for this in both the House and in the Senate. He supported it, and so he's hoping everyone has forgotten that Republican Mike Kehoe foisted upon Missouri the very largest tax increase we have ever had in the state of Missouri. Came from Mike Kehoe. And now he's the guy who wants to be your governor, and he claims to be a Republican. He's actually a Democrat, in my opinion. And I have a lot of reasons for saying that beyond the tax hike. But I'm sure Catherine remembers that tax hike, the gas tax, because they did it they structured it in a very special way, didn't they? So they could get around the Hancock Amendment. So it was less than 5% increase per year. So,
Right.
but they structured it over a period of 9 years. Steady increases every year for 9 years.
I'm trying to remember the committee that went through. I can't think of the name of it. What committee would that have gone through? Fiscal? No.
I don't remember.
Anyway, I do recall that my state senator, Travis Fitzwater, was chair of the committee that it went through, and he voted yes as the committee chair and then voted no for it on the House floor. So he can now say he voted against it, but he voted yes on it in committee as the chair.
Yep.
Oh, the games they play.
The games they play.
Sounds like
go ahead.
I was saying it sounds like a vote trade.
Well, in some cases, voting it out of committee has a different connotation than voting for it on the floor. Voting for it on the committee is basically, does it meet this guideline? Does it meet that guideline? Is it constitutional? You know, it's that kind of stuff. But some people will say, I am ideologically opposed to this bill, therefore I'm voting no even in committee. And, you know, there's plenty of them that do that, by the way. But the fact of the matter is, Mike Kehoe actually was behind the biggest tax increase in Missouri's history. He was behind that just 3 years ago. And now he wants to be our governor. So I want everyone to remember that. But there's other things about Kehoe as well. But Kehoe is getting an enormous amount of money right now. Catherine, have you looked into the amount of money Kehoe's been pulling in at all? Have you had time?
I haven't lately. I know it's a lot, but I can imagine it's the same old, same old. I mean, he gets a lot of money from the Cattlemen's Association and soybean and Rex Sinkfield.
Farm Bureau.
I haven't looked lately. Yeah, Farm Bureau. I imagine it's a lot of the same. He gets a lot from I can't think of what they're called, but like the essentially the public sector union for the police officers, that sort of thing. Which is why they'll come out and say, "Oh, I've got the support of the police officers." I'm like, "No, you've got the support of the union."
The Sheriff's Association came out and endorsed Kehoe.
Yeah, that's all. That's all union. So to me, that's Democrat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the thing is, and this is a fact, I put this on Twitter now, and I did get this I can't get from the Ashcroft's camp. But here's the numbers. Kehoe's average donation size is $7,500, and Bill Eigels is $23,000. But Bill Eigel just received money from the trial lawyers. That did not come through at the time I got the numbers. But I do believe Bill's has now doubled to $46 per average donation. So at any rate, because that's the first big money he got. And so at any rate, so you could still use the same numbers essentially. So Kehoe, his average donation, $7,500 is his average donation size. Bill Eigels is roughly $46,000 with the new trial lawyers giving him money. So
I just saw a source that says 1 out of every $3 raised for the race by the PAC backing Mike Kehoe came from Rex Sinkfield.
Yep, Rex Sinkfield is a big part of this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Catherine, you've got information on Rex Sinkfield and who he supports. And 727 was a big deal.
It's been a while. Yeah, he was huge behind that. That was
Right.
one of his. He really wants to return the St. Louis Police Department back, prevent it from going back to the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that's something Kehoe would not do.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at money in a while, to be honest. So
We know you've been busy. We know you've been busy, Catherine. So everyone's asking about you all the time, about you and Kirby.
well, thanks.
Yep. So
Yeah, I don't know. We're just kind of in different places right now. I'm going to her baptism tomorrow, which is really exciting.
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Kirby's being baptized tomorrow?
Yeah.
Wow.
She is. She is. Yeah.
Okay.
When we first met, yeah, it was a different story. So we're like, we thought God brought us together for politics, but I think he had other reasons. So
Okay. Well, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. Nope.
Okay. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to say. By the way, that's another neat thing about our organization. We don't tell anyone who to vote for. We don't do that. We've never done that. We are active up in Jefferson City, so we interact with all these people that are on the ballot, most of them. Some of them are newcomers. So we have stories about them, and I'm going to share a story real quick about Crystal Quaid, who is the Democrat running for governor. Crystal Quaid, I'm only focusing on 2 years. It'd be 2022 and 2023. Our group stopped by her office a total of 11 times in those 2 years. And we stopped by very specifically to get her support for elimination of sales tax on food. So not only did she not make time for us, not once in those 2 years, she never returned the phone calls either. But now she's on Twitter asking me to chip in $5 to her campaign. And so she's a Democrat. It was a Democrat bill that we did in 2023, if you guys remember, for sales tax on food. It was Peter Meredith's. And we couldn't even get her time for that one. When it was a Republican bill, we kind of figured she wouldn't want to talk to us. But when it was a Democrat bill, we figured she'd want to talk to us. She still didn't want to talk to us. Crystal Quaid cannot make time for constituents, but she does have plenty of time to be in government and to ask people for donations, apparently. So that's not been my experience with most of the people that I support here. And I say most because some of them, like, for instance, one I have never met before, and that's Tim Baker. I've had some DMs with him on Twitter. Tim Baker is running for lieutenant governor in the state of Missouri. So now the supposed front runner is Lincoln Huff. Now, Lincoln Huff has the best hair in Jefferson City, bar none. No one can really compete with his hair. It is perfectly styled. It's never out of place, and he's got that one curl that comes down kind of like Superman, Christopher Reeve, Superman kind of thing. So he's in all the interviews I've ever seen him in, no one asks him what products he uses on his hair. And I find that surprising, especially when you go on Scott Fahn's show, because, Scott Fahn asks all these, softball questions. By the way, Scott Fahn and I got into a little tiff on Twitter recently, by the way. So we got into a little Twitter fight. So Scott Fahn, if you're listening in, I know that I'm not important enough to come onto your show. We would love to have you on ours, though. We'd absolutely love to have you on ours. We have questions for you, sir. So that's just in case Scott Fahn happens to be watching. But I do think that he probably is watching us because, basically our show is somewhat relevant. And we're actually talking about, the grassroots and their interactions with politicians. Scott Fahn recently went after a grassroots.
Have you on if you were a relative?
I know. I mean, it's almost like I just got to say, hey, I'm related to Parson. So you want to interview me? That's the only way I think I'm going to get on there. And which I'm not.
He's so full of himself.
I know he is, and God bless him. He's doing the very best he can. Basically with his limited capabilities and his limited abilities. And so God bless him for that. I mean, he really is promoting rhinos like I have never seen before, especially for a guy who claims to be conservative himself.
Right.
So I kind of wonder where his money's coming in from. I'd love to go on a show and ask him where his income stream is. By the way, we have no income stream, even though he did accuse the grassroots of taking liberal dark money, and that's apparently our revenue stream. I pay for all of this equipment myself. Catherine pays for all of her equipment herself. There's no liberal dark money. But for Scott Fahn to go after Bev Aline like he did on Twitter, that was classless.
Mhm.
It was
It
actually
was.
it, and in fact, he was. If you guys read everything, I mean, he was actually trying to back up out of that one. He
Yeah.
was saying
He
that,
was like, well, she started it.
yep,
I'm thinking, okay, well, that doesn't make it okay for you to say that about it. Show some class.
yep, and
Keep your mouth shut.
yeah, he definitely is someone of interest to me. I will see what I can do to get some communication going between Scott Fawn and myself, because Scott Fawn and I are not getting along real well, and I want us to get along. And but at the same time, if he wants to accuse me of taking liberal dark money or accuse my friends of taking liberal dark money, he better let us have some time on his show. It'd be
I
like
still
you and
wonder
me,
where my
Catherine.
cut is.
Yeah.
I know I'm waiting for ours to come in.
Yep.
That's why
I
we
know,
haven't done a podcast in a while. We're still waiting.
Well, maybe we can get his interest if we start a rumor about Scott Fawn right now that maybe he works with a Chicago mob. And
I'm pretty sure
Hey, there
he
you
works for
go.
the Missouri mob.
okay, the Missouri mob, yeah.
Yeah.
So and that he's also getting enormous amounts of money from Democrat sources. And in fact, that's actually something that would be relatively easy to prove. But so at any rate, that's the kind of stuff we could say about Scott Fawn. Scott Fawn, basically going after the grassroots when we're trying to clean up this state. We're trying to, heal the state from the damage done. And by the way, the damage has been done from everyone who is not investigating before they hit the ballot. And it's being done by Democrats actually voting in open Republican primaries. That there's a lot of damage there too. And by the way, Catherine, I haven't talked to you in a while. Do you know about Operation Strategic D?
Yes, I have heard of that.
Okay, gotcha. And of course, so the Democrats are going to go in and take Republican ballots. We will know this after the fact. The damage will already be done if they do it, but we will find out, because you'll find out that there was, let's just say, Catherine, I'm going to throw out some fictitious numbers right now. 150,000 votes for Crystal Quaid, but something ridiculous like 600,000 votes in the primary for Mike Kehoe. That's how you know the Democrats have participated in the primary, is by the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
But you find out after the fact. Now, I have talked to a couple of Democrat PACs. They claim that doesn't exist. They've never heard of it before. But at the same time, if I bring it up with people like Jess Piper, normally they attack me. Anytime I go into Jess Piper's thread and put something in, Jess Piper, by the way, is a very prominent Missouri communist. I'm a Democrat. And so with her, and she has a huge account on Twitter. It's like 140,000 people follow her, but they're from all over the country. And anytime I put anything on Jess's threads, I get attacked by at least half a dozen people that come out of her thread and come out and attack me. But on Operation Strategic D, silence. Total silence. No one's saying a word.
Just real quick, while we're talking, I'm now scrolling through the Missouri Ethics Commission. Okay, just since this January until today, Rex Singfield has donated $1.2 million to Kehoe. To Kehoe's PAC, the American Dream PAC.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay. So Rex, and also there have been, and by the way, I'm not going to say who, what, when, where, or why. Someone said that Steve Tilley has is supporting Bill Eigel. Now, people who are not from Missouri, probably that means nothing, but this is a guy who kind of teeters on the and I'll talk to you about it later, Catherine. The fact is, there is no support from Tilley to Bill Eigel. There's been no financial support. In fact, the financial support from, if you look it up, Steve Tilley has been going to Kehoe, and the endorsement went to Kehoe. And so at any rate, there is no connection there. The only connection is the two men know each other, and he did loan his airplane hangar to Bill Eigel for his announcement party. That's it. There's the connection right there. People were, I think, reading a little bit more into it than was But at any rate, Warrior Class 3 says, if Eigel loses the primary, can we write him in on the election ballot? The answer is yes. But will he be an official write-in candidate? He has to file for that, believe it or not, in the state of Missouri. So I do believe that he does have like a month to do that after the primary. But at the same time, I think that that's probably something that Eigel would consider doing. But let's see. Sam I Am also talks about Lincoln Huff is also good at drinking games. That's another thing. There is a culture of drinking alcohol up there in the Capitol, and Lincoln Huff is not excluded, from that particular label. He is well known for drinking, but does that make him a bad person? No. It's voting like a Democrat. Constantly voting like a Democrat that we as grassroots use to identify whether or not he is an actual conservative or a viable conservative. Lincoln Huff is the poster child of the term rhino in the state of Missouri. And actually he has literally his voting record is so bad that it is almost exactly like a Senate Democrats' voting record. So this is with Lincoln Huff. Now, is he a bad person? A horrible person? I don't know that he's a horrible person, but he doesn't have a very good voting record. So that's the main issue. And also, too, he has worked with others to slow down SEPA. Remember now, SEPA was an 8-year project. And Lincoln Huff was one of the folks that literally helped to slow down SEPA in previous years. And so was Dean Plocker. So Dean Plocker actually worked behind the scenes with Elijah Haar in the past to actually slow down SEPA, to prevent it from going through, just slowing it down so it couldn't possibly make it through in the amount of time they had left. It's a common tactic to kill a bill.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, that's my thoughts on that. So Dean Plocker, I'm going to put out a video about him, I think probably in the next week. It'll be a short. But I don't know that it's even really necessary anymore. Has anyone heard anything about Dean Plocker pushing real hard or getting a lot of money or anything like that?
Anything.
I saw one sign of his put up.
Okay.
One. That was it.
Can you even mention approximately where that sign was?
It is in Rolla in Paul's Furniture, right there on 63, right next to a J. Ashcroft sign, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. That's the first Plocker sign I've heard of in the initiative, the very first one.
I just saw it this week, and I'm like, oh, that's odd.
Yeah, the only thing I saw out of Plocker was actually try to do like a, I don't know, like a 3-event campaign thing over in this part of the state between like Jackson County, Cass, and whatever. And it was all of like show up for 30 minutes and ramble. And I actually sent that over to Pellis, and he contacted some other folks. I don't know exactly what came of that, but I think he went over there and they just kind of watched and observed the whole thing. I don't think he's getting anywhere. He's so ruined.
I think he's politically damaged to the point where he really can't run this cycle. So I think that's probably true. So I'm not sure it's even necessary to go after him. Guys, I want to continue talking about Secretary of State real quick because I want everyone's input on Valentina Gomez. Holy mackerel. Now, I'm just going to give you a guy.
I might just vote for the woman.
I know. I mean, she's sexy. She's running around with guns, and she's a spicy Latina woman. So at any rate, yeah. So, yeah, that, of course, interests the male voter. I mean, I'm just honest, right?
I'm going to be really blunt here. Her, I think she, in some regards, she doesn't quite completely grasp what she presents her campaign like she doesn't completely grasp what the office is for.
Right.
But at the same time, that's the thing about Latinas. Yeah, they can come off really coarse, but they don't say no. They don't allow anybody to say no. So,
well,
it's one of those things.
I'm just going to say that she has run one hell of a spirited campaign, but it's all social media. Okay, so here, Scout's Honor here, I got to tell you, I've tried to contact her by email and by direct message. And that was literally to talk to her about her campaign and get more of her background. And she has not responded. Therefore, I can't vote for her because we just don't have any information. She is not doing public. She's done one public appearance that I'm aware of. Everything else is social media, 30-second, 1-minute bites. But she is very good at doing that.
I know of two.
Okay,
That's it.
two
Been all
appearances.
over the country though.
She was down at the border with some chicken wire. She was going to help keep the illegals out.
Okay, gotcha.
She did several public appearances. She actually went to several. I think she went to a couple of the gun rights events, like in other states and whatnot. I think she went to a lot of different places outside of Missouri for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
But it was all like pro-gun stuff and like, shutting down the border stuff. She's an interesting character.
she is. I mean, I'll give her that. And she would be a valid candidate in my mind if she would respond to some grassroots organizations, the request for more information. I mean, we are the ones, for instance, that are literally interacting with these people who are running for office. Most average people wouldn't do that, but we see them up in Jeff City all the time. Valentina Gomez is an unknown, but like I said, a spicy, fit Latina woman running around with 2 AR-15s in all of her ads on Twitter. Yeah, that gets attention for most guys.
Calls people gay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, honest to God, she's spicy, man. She's entertaining.
She's from Colombia.
Well, maybe she works for the mob, or some kind of drug cartel. Who knows? But so that's my thoughts on Valentina. If she had contacted me, I'd give her more consideration. Right now, my pick is Denny Hoskins, but that's an easy pick. Especially for people who go up to Jeff City and deal with these guys. Now, Shane Schuler, let's talk about him a little bit, because actually he showed up on the list for Operation Strategic D. And does anyone know anything about Shane?
I don't know a whole lot other than I did support him. He ran for Secretary of State in 2012. And that was the same year that we had Todd Akins and John Bruner were running for U.S. Senate. And so, I don't know. I supported him. I can't really say I know a whole lot about him. I just know this isn't his first time running for Secretary of State. And he did get a huge, like $250,000 donation from Rex Sinkfield. That really, near the end, that put off a lot of people. But I also think Todd Akins probably also ruined his chances with his whole, I don't know if you remember, that was when he talked about the legitimate rape. You remember that?
Yep.
Whole scenario. And I also think Todd Akins won. We were talking about Democrats coming out and voting, because it was when I was door knocking a couple of years later that I had the people that had voted in the primary in 2012. And it turned out they're like, oh, well, I'm a Democrat. And I was like, okay, well, there wasn't a Democrat primary in 2012. So they had come out and voted for Todd Akins, which is why he won. And we know how that went. Anyway, that's all I really know. And then he went on to, since he lost, went on to become clerk, Greene County.
Okay.
Clerk.
Catherine, what old info do you think you could pull out of Hafner's pack?
Hafner?
Yeah, Mike Hafner.
What's the name of his pack? Do you know?
I don't know, but I know he's trying to pull a dirty smear campaign against
Rick
Bratton.
I'm not surprised. I'll see what I can find out. I'd need to know his pack name first. But that's easy I can just ask around.
I mean, it's his treasurer is his wife.
Teresa. That's like Clocker.
Yep.
His treasurer is his wife.
Yep.
Like, oops. How do you not turn in all these receipts?
His treasurer is his wife.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's sleeping with his treasurer.
I don't
You
know.
know, so you know
Yeah.
that there's shenanigans going on there. I mean, there's really no other way it could
I
be.
don't know.
That's the
I
thing.
can,
Is
I
he's
can find out. Mike Hafner's always
Yeah.
been icky to me.
just yeah, and the thing is, he acts like that, and I've gotten this from other people too, and my talks with Brett and all that, and because I mean Brett and I are friends. I mean we chat back and forth on Messenger every now and again, but yeah, he's my one like more than just passing by in a hallway. My one interaction with him was when Patrick, you and I were down there over here at the Cass County Republican Central Committee.
Okay,
You remember how he acted there?
I do. So this is my opinion of Mike Hafner. Mike Hafner, he is quite an ego. And a lot of politicians do, so that's not entirely unusual. But he likes to get you one-on-one in order to convey
Yes.
information. He doesn't like to do it publicly.
Yes.
And so that's
Yeah.
because he sprinkles it with some untruths sometimes. And he doesn't want to be called out on that. And he makes you think that he has inside information on everything all the time. And that's the reason why he needs to talk to you privately. So
he
he's
was when I worked John Bruner's campaign for governor, he was Bruner's like communications guy.
Mhm.
Like, did
Well,
all the
keep
postings.
not there's a Michael Hafner and it's one F, and then there's Mike
Oh,
Hafner,
okay.
two F's. It's two different
might have
people.
the
I
wrong
found that out
one.
the other day.
Okay. Because I can't imagine, because the one we're talking about doesn't fit the bill with the one that I worked with Bruner. So
Yeah,
I might be
no, this
thinking of the wrong
guy
one.
this guy is he actually owns the Pumpkin Patch Christmas tree farm here just in
That's right.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I get along with Hafner okay, but he seems kind of blowhardish to me a lot of the time.
Well, the other thing too about him, and this is something that I've noticed, and this isn't to say anything bad about a particular branch of the service or anything, but it seems to be a habit when you have commanding officers on ships. They tend to be arrogant, really arrogant. That's been my experience with any amount of rank Navy that I've been around. I don't know what it is, but the guy's a snake in the grass.
Mm.
I mean, I've gotten that response from a lot of people too, just saying he's an outright snake in the grass. And he does lie a lot. I mean, he was trying to claim that that Bratton is the one who caused land to be sold to China, when in reality that was Hafner's bill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's blatant lies. Can't make up. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can, obviously, but why would you have to? As for Bratton, I mean, he's about one of the most straightforward guys you could ever be around.
Yep.
Um,
One thing I'm going to say about I have lots of nice things to say about Bratton. And, and once again, guys, if we're talking about votes, Bratton is right up in the top there for the most conservative people in the Senate. So, I mean, we could say that all day long. But the fact of the matter is, Bratton also is a child of God. And he doesn't hide from that. He doesn't shy away from it. It's a very big part of who he is, not only as a senator, but also as a family man. And I really hate the fact that Jess Piper is going after him, because he had a worship service in his office, and she's saying separation of church and state, basically you can't do that. Well, it's not like he forced anyone to come in for the worship service. I mean, this is ridiculous stuff.
It was spontaneous.
Yes, it was.
Other people were just came in there and they started doing it, and he just joined in.
Yep. So, at any rate, once again, I mean, that's a very big part of Rick Bratton's life, and I'm Christian as well. And I saw some of that service on a live stream, and I wish I were there. It was a very, very great service.
Another thing too.
Yeah, go ahead.
is that I have witnessed him in publicly admit when he's wrong about something.
Yep. And by the way, I want to say that that's unusual. Mike Moon will do the same thing. That's unusual for a politician to admit they're wrong because that admits weakness. And most people with big egos never want to admit weakness. So they always see it as someone else's fault, or they didn't have the right information, which means it was someone else's fault. So, yeah, that's a good point to bring up about Bratton. And like I said, Mike Moon is the same way. So, okay, guys, continuing on for Secretary of State, because I have to end this at 9 p.m. in about half an hour. And we're just going through people who are running for office in the state of Missouri, and right now we're just concentrating on Secretary of State. And some people, and by the way, some people, like Maria said, who are you talking about? I just got here. I didn't catch that when you posted it, so I'm not sure at what point. We talked a lot about a lot of folks. And Gary Ride. Hey, hello to Gary. Gary, I owe you a phone call, man. That'll come this coming up week. He says, I was in Plocker's district Thursday evening for the Eigel debate. There were 0 yard signs for Plocker in his own district. So, poor Dean Plocker. Well, his district is probably the one that really doesn't want him to run for anything anymore. Misty Atkinson reports.
Probably has to pay people.
Yeah, I'm sure. At this point, you almost have to. Misty Atkinson is saying her real last name is Noriega, not Gomez. Interesting. So we have a name change going on here. And Misty says, I ran into Shane in the morning after the Missouri State Republican Convention, and he threw the grassroots under the bus. I went to college with him.
Not surprised.
Yep. Have known him since 1990. And Gary says, that's good information, Misty. And yes, Misty, I think I'll be talking to you sometime in the near future as well via Ma Bell. I would like to find out a little bit more about Shane. I mean, all I know is that he is on the list for Operation Strategic D along with Plocker for Secretary of State. That's all I really know about the man. Okay, let's talk about Mary Elizabeth Coleman, gang. She is also running for Secretary of State. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who I have proudly not circled on this list. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, we saw as the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and by the way, I'm just being straight up honest. I'm not trying to make enemies here. We saw in 2023 she changed, literally amended her own bill 30 minutes before a committee hearing when 9 people showed up from around the state to testify for her bill, and she knew we were coming. She didn't inform us in advance. She didn't tell us that she was watering down her own bill before the committee hearing. She never told us. So we were pretty off-put with that. But that's our experience, the Missouri Freedom Initiative. By the way, for someone to call up a politician and say, by the way, we're going to have 10 people there from the initiative testifying for your bill, that's a pretty big deal for the average politician to get 10 people to come and testify for their bill from all over the state. And sometimes we have a lot more, and we just can't get through them all, because sometimes when you have 20, 25 people to show up to testify, they start limiting you to 2 minutes each, sometimes less. But we did that for Coleman's bill.
Did you also overthrow IP reform?
Okay, I haven't gotten there yet. We'll hit that in a second,
yeah.
because that's the big one. That's why she is not only going to lose Secretary of State, but she will never be voted into public office again, is because of IP reform. What she did to the Missouri Freedom Initiative, it was our story. She didn't do it to the entire planet. She didn't do anything to the entire state with that. She just did it when we were about to testify. What Isaac alluded to, she did to the entire state. And it was this year, 2024. It had to do with SJR 74. Some people know it as the IP reform bill, but it was actually ratification reform. She literally destroyed that bill. She absolutely destroyed it. And in two different times. And it was by amending her own bill. So this is where Mary Elizabeth is not going to outlive this. The grassroots remember. We remember. We're pretty good at remembering. We're going after Mike Kehoe for something he did 3 years ago. So that's why he cannot become governor, because he is not a conservative. If he wants to run as a Democrat, that's fine. But, he should not be running as a conservative because he's a big government, big tax Republican. Now, Mary Elizabeth Coleman, I don't know what her game is. I'm going to ask everyone to chime in here. If they know what is the deal with Mary Elizabeth Coleman, here's some of the facts about her. Number one, her PAC is in Washington, D.C. So that's an interesting fact about Mary Coleman. That is not true with 99% of the people that are state politicians in the state of Missouri. They don't have their PACs in D.C. In other words, her PAC is basically getting money from federal lobbyists. So she has bigger plans than just being in the state of Missouri. Now, we all saw when Congressional District 3 was up for grabs that she threw her name into the hat right away. So she has her sights set on something bigger, is what I think. But, harpooning an IP reform, or what I call ratification reform, was really kind of the last nail in her coffin. I don't think she's electable anymore. What say you, Catherine?
No, I definitely agree. She's not electable after what she pulled, the IP reform. Yeah.
And just so for anyone who's out of the
that's
state.
my opinion.
Okay, that's kind of mine too. I think she's really done a lot of damage to herself. I think she was hoping.
She has.
Yep, that she could somehow escape this, but I don't think it's possible. It's kind of like Plocker trying to escape 4 scandals in 2023 to run for Secretary of State this year. He can't do it. The grassroots remember, and we keep reminding people what they've done. But for those of you who don't know what the IP reform or ratification reform was, it was a way for us to actually tighten up the vote totals, basically for getting our Constitution amended in the state of Missouri. And it did it by increasing the threshold of how many votes were necessary. We didn't do anything with the signature side. That would be IP reform. But we do it on the vote side, so we call it ratification reform. And that's the distinction between the two as far as my knowledge is. I could be wrong on that. But Mary Elizabeth carried this bill, SJR 74. She amended it 6 times. And that was the first round in the Senate. Went through the House. It got fixed. It was actually a pretty good bill from the House. Comes back into the Senate. They bring it to the floor. She amends it again. It's her bill, so she can do that. And so she amended it in such a way that it was a mess, and they would have to go through the House again. They were running out of time anyway at that point. But it was going to prevent, basically, because right now we're looking at an abortion amendment in the Missouri. By the way, this won't be during our primary. This will be in our general. So I've actually had 2 people say, hey, I've looked at the sample ballot. The abortion amendment isn't there. Yay. And I said, no, it's coming in November. So, no, it's not here yet. So, yeah, it's not on this ballot. It'll be on the November.
So did that actually get through the abortion amendment?
I think it did. And once again, it's not like they went by a massive amount, but I do think they did find some fraudulent signatures in there, but they still had enough good ones. So I think it's going through. And by the way, I've not called the Secretary of State's office since the last time I called was right at the end of session. So that'd be about a month and a half, almost 2 months ago. And they were still going through the signatures. Because it was like May 15th was the cutoff date, I think it was what it was. Something like that. And then it goes to Secretary of State's office to verify the signatures, which is a big process. And so... let's see. Mary Elizabeth, this is from Gary Ride. Mary Elizabeth Coleman is getting trolled immensely on her own Facebook website for her single-handedly killing IP reform in the Senate. Gary Ride, that's exactly what's happening on Twitter, too. Anytime she posts something, people put in there, basically the ratification or IP reform, that she had killed. And it's consistent. I mean, it's been going on and on and on. She has unfortunately damaged her brand to the point where I don't think she's electable anymore. Now, she'll still be a senator for 2 more years. She's in the middle of a term right now. But she will not be Secretary of State, and I don't think she will win another election after what she did. Let's see. Sam I Am is asking, hey, Patrick and everyone else, how confident are you that there will not be any voting irregularities in primary voting? Okay, that's actually a very interesting question, and I want everyone to be able to talk about it, but I have concerns about Democrats voting in the Republican primaries. That's the voting irregularity that I'm most worried about, to be honest with you. However, there could be voting machine irregularities. I just don't know. I know Dominion machines are gone except for Kansas City and St. Louis. They refused to get rid of them. But they also had, pardon me, they'd also spent a lot of money on those machines. I may not be able to afford to replace them right away, but we should go back to hand counting. So, Sam, honest to God, my biggest concern right now is Operation Strategic D, and that's Democrats voting in the Republican primaries to get Mike Kehoe in as governor. That's my primary concern right now. And everyone else, chime in if you guys are worried about voting irregularities. Anyone? No one? Same concerns? No concerns?
What are we saying? Sorry, I had to reply to something.
Okay, gotcha. Sam I am is asking if we're concerned about any voting irregularities in the primary ballot.
I think maybe in the cities, but beyond that, maybe Kansas, core part of Kansas City, Springfield, maybe Rolla. Some. I can't say that they can fudge it too much, though. A little too obvious.
Yep. I have, essentially, I don't have a lot of faith in the electronic voting machines. I mean, you can go back to 2000 when we had problems with those and they were first reported. But, we have open primaries in the state of Missouri, gang, and we need to get rid of the open primaries. I mean, honest to God, we've got to just do that. At least do that. And stop the Democrats actually getting these rhinos in. And by the way, they can't do it single-handedly. There are some Republicans that will vote for Mike Kehoe. That is a fact. But when you couple that with, basically Democrats going in and voting for Mike Kehoe on the Republican ballot, because they still have Crystal Quaid coming in, so they could still choose between Kehoe and Quaid. To me, that's not really a choice. It's a lack of options, is all it is. So that's where I'm concerned, gang. I'm concerned about Democrats voting in the Republican primaries, and they have talked about it. And I can't get any data out of anyone, particularly on Twitter. They will come after me. If I put anything conservative on Twitter, the Democrats come after me. I am constantly trolled on Twitter. And by the way, I'm not complaining about it. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. It's a dumpster fire. You know when you go on social media and you're conservative.
But it's our dumpster fire.
Yes, it is. It's our dumpster fire. But the fact of the matter is no one's trolling me or saying anything when I talk about Operation Strategic D. That worries me just a little bit. It's like, don't talk about that. Just don't say anything. I did have one Democrat admit that she votes in the Republican primaries on Twitter. So it's only one, and it was from Jess Piper's crew. And she did admit that she will be taking a Republican ballot during the primary because she wants Mike Kehoe. She thinks Mike Kehoe would be the best governor, but she is a Democrat. So it does happen.
I'd like time.
I'm sorry, Voodoo, go ahead.
That's fine. If you guys watch on the right side with Doug Billings, you can watch the governor's debate, and Kehoe did not even show.
Yeah, he didn't even show up.
You can watch Eigel and Ashcroft and Wright. Those are the only three that showed up.
Yep.
Well, it's in Kehoe's best interest not to show up.
Yep.
Honestly.
Statement.
At a Republican debate.
Yep. Catherine's right.
Well, let's just put it this way. Eigel put Kehoe in his place. If you watch it, you will understand why Kehoe doesn't show up. Yes.
Yeah. Chris Wright made some good points, but he's not the best orator.
No, he's not. And actually, he said something that kind of worried me just a little bit, although it was honesty. You cannot ding Chris Wright on being dishonest. You can't. He is honest to a fault. He said, hey, for
I'll
what?
be honest with you, he was the sweetest man
Yep.
up there. As for congenial, my only thing against him is I don't think he has enough, excuse the expression, testicles to fight what's up there.
Yep, I agree
Yeah.
with you. Well, actually, I don't think he
He doesn't have the
understands what he'd be getting
experience.
into.
Yeah, he doesn't have the experience in it.
So I would vote for Chris Wright for best friend. He's a nice guy. He is incredibly honest. He even said the governor has a lot of handlers. For stuff I don't understand, I can go to the handlers. That was an honest answer, but it's not a good one. You know,
It tells you're not qualified.
that's pretty much it. Yeah, well, not necessarily not qualified, but not informed. So
not ready for the job for sure.
Yep. And I've been remiss in getting to comments here on Rumble here. So Ozarks Freedom Gal has said a lot of stuff. But basically, she said something interesting. She said, I met Schuler at local R meeting, or county meeting. He had swampy answers. But when I expressed concerns about the library issue, he gave me a cell phone number and followed up. Not voting for him, but respect. And so, yep, that's the same thing. Like, for instance, I really do love Jay Ashcroft. I really do. He's a good man. I'm not voting for him, though. I'm not. And so that's my opinion. And it's nothing to do with his charisma, his personality. It has to do with Bill Eigel is the best man to literally go in and start dealing with corruption in Jefferson City. No one else is speaking about it publicly. I'm going to ask a question in the group here before I get to more comments. Has anyone heard of anyone else actually running for the governor that is actually talking about the corruption up there? Has anyone heard?
No.
Okay, I haven't either.
You know, and I gotta say something else too when it comes to when it comes to Ashcroft, just from like personal level, like when the kind of people they are. I mean, I'm not gonna agree with everything that Eigel or whoever is saying on every single detail. That's a given. That's with everybody. But, I've seen Eigel as being the type that's going to sit down and have a conversation. My experience with Ashcroft is he gets confrontational. When it comes to politics, he gets confrontational.
Yeah. Well,
but in a negative manner.
Yeah.
My experience with him was just a simple thing of like talking about the source of power for government.
Okay.
I was in his office. It was after another conversation outside of his office, and the guy started. There's another guy with me. I can't remember exactly what his name was, but we're talking and got into a lot of stuff about the Bible and all that, and then he starts talking about where the source of power for government comes from, and says, and was acting almost like a monarchy, how effectively government is handed power by God, which I was like, oh, it's and that just did not sit the right way. And I was gonna go, went to bring up a point, because actually just the day I went there, I would actually listen to almost the entirety of Thomas Paine Common Sense driving there. So it's like a 2.5 hour drive there. So like, yeah, I'll listen to that, again, the 20th time. And it was going to bring up the point about how Thomas Paine had brought up the point about, demanding a king, and God said there shouldn't be a king. Yeah, the story of Samuel, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I was going to bring that up, and then he snapped at me. Like, he gave me that almost angry look and snapped at me.
Interesting.
Well, the reason, to give a Christian answer to that, God gave human government to mankind as a punishment to mankind
Yep.
because they refused to have God be their leader.
That's right.
And he said, because you refuse me, I will give you over to your fellow man and see how you like it.
He told them all the horrible things that were going to happen, and we're still.
And they
dealing with it.
happened. Yeah.
And the funny thing is about that, this at that time was reference to kings, monarchs, that were to be, kind of like the British crown, which we separated from. We inverted it in the formation of the United States. We inverted that structure.
Yeah.
For the bottom up. And for the purposes of a constitution, for the purposes of a structure of government, he sure as heck acts like a monarchist.
Well, I choose to look at, and by the way, I know what you're talking about with Jay, and I choose to look at it as, basically he has extremely firm convictions, and I know that's political speak and everything, but he literally has, his idea of the way things are, and he likes to tell you his way, and there's not a debate. He's just telling you. And so, at any rate,
like Hafner.
No, Hafner's a different creature altogether because Jay will do this in a crowd. Hafner will not do it in a crowd. He wants you one-on-one in order to give you his opinion.
That's true. Yeah.
So Jay is a better man by far than Hafner could ever hope to be.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Jay's a bad guy or anything, but I'm saying in comparison to the personalities and how they react to things and how they would structure how they deal with things. Eigel is likely to sit down and have a conversation, even if he doesn't agree.
Yep.
He'll sit and hear the points. Ashcroft will interrupt and get emotional.
Yep.
I mean, it's to that point of if you compare the two friends, like if you're friends with the guy, like Eigel's that guy that's going to be the friend to everybody, even though he disagrees in some things.
Yep.
He's going to be the practical joker, the fun guy. And then Ashcroft is going to be the guy that's kind of fun sometimes, but he's got some emotional baggage.
Yep. I hear you. So.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Pat. We're getting close up to 9 o'clock. I know you said you had to go. One thing I really wanted to cover state treasurer before we have to wrap it up.
Sure.
You got time?
Yep.
Because one of the things I really like about Lori Rook is because I watched that lady, had a long conversation with her at Lincoln Days in my hometown. She looked straight at Vivek and called him on corruption while Vivek grinned guiltily from ear to ear at one of the things about the farm money that disappeared within like 24 hours in tax credits.
Yep.
But also, it's one race we really need to watch out for because of 727 that happened this year.
Yep, that's right. Promulgation of the rules. Yeah.
Promulgation of the rules will go straight to the treasurer's office, and they have DESE as their thing.
Yep.
That was Andrew Koenig's bill.
Yep.
Just to remind everybody. And he's running for the very office that would give him all that power.
Yep.
And it's something also at that same meeting I talked to Lori Brookwood at, Andrew Koenig had told everybody how he was honored to have Jason Smith in the room because he helped him get started in politics, which I thought was interesting. So it's like, okay, so you have Jason Smith on your backside. That's a WEF hack right there.
Yep.
And you're running for a very, very office that you wrote the bill or sponsored the bill to give yourself all the power for controlling all this funding and education stuff. But Lori Rook's the only person on that list that I believe is a good, solid, decent human being that is opposed to all of that. She's also very pro gold and silver. So
yep. And she's
I take on them here.
Yeah, I want to say something about Lori. She is not only pro gold and silver, but she's also said, if I become treasurer, I'll be looking into the ways we can have a depository for gold and silver for backing up state funds. She's thinking just like they did in Texas, like they did in Tennessee, like they did in Utah. She's worried about the pension fund too. And if we keep having inflation, guys, the pension fund is going to just dwindle away. And we've made promises to people that have worked for the state before. Here we are. I've never, ever been a state employee, and I'm looking out for the state employees, as a grassroots activist. Promises were
Statist.
made for pensions. We need to keep those promises. And in order to do that, we truly need something to hedge our bet against for inflation. So I agree with you. Lori Rook, I think, would make an excellent treasurer. She's certainly saying the right things. She's very well known. She's a prominent attorney. And she's from the Springfield area. And I was, very lucky. I got a 3-hour meeting with her. And this was, I don't even remember when. I think it was in May. Might have been in April. I can't remember exactly. Something along that.
It was April.
April.
Tell me about that. I think it was April.
Okay, gotcha. And so, and she wanted to talk, basically about depositories, gold and silver depositories. And so, at any rate, she goes, well, you've been supporting, Eigel's bill. I figure you know a lot about this. And I said, yeah, I'll be happy to share with you everything I know. So she found it fascinating. So at any rate, I want to say something about Vivek Malik, however he pronounces his name. He is against gold and silver. He is our current treasurer. He is against the depository. There's corruption there, I think. We could go into further. And by the way, we're going to keep going through this list for the next 3 weeks. We're going to keep telling stories. We're going to keep going through the list and let you guys know, who the individuals in the initiative are voting for and why. We are not endorsing anybody. In fact, Catherine, if you can come on next Saturday night, feel free to bring a ballot, a sample ballot, fill it out, give us your reasons for who you're voting for. I'd love to hear. I extend that to everybody in the initiative. Yep. And so they don't have to agree with me. It's not a fight. These are different opinions. We have different experiences. But I think, basically, I want more information from all of you guys in the initiative to help me decide on Will Scharf or Andrew Bailey. I have not circled that one in. It's the only one I haven't circled in. And so I'm getting information via email now from people in the initiative because I put that out a couple of times. I'm very grateful for the information people are sending me. And actually, if people say, make a choice right now, this second, Pat, I'd say Will Scharf. Because I'm getting some information on Bailey that's kind of concerning. And and
I'm concerned because he's Parsons' appointee and he wasn't elected. So because Parsons is who put him in that spot, I can't find anything directly he's done that I know of that's wrong. I know who put him there.
Yep.
Right.
No, that's a good point.
Parson.
But also, too, I'm gonna throw this out here. He is hanging out with Mike Kehoe at fundraisers.
Yes.
So that's the biggest
And
thing.
I've seen their signs side by side.
Okay,
Kehoe and Bailey side by side.
so they're connected by the bank account and by the hip. So Mike Kehoe is not who we want as governor, yet that's who Andrew Bailey is hooking up his wagon to. So that worries me about Bailey. So Scharf has taken money from questionable sources. But Bailey's doing it right now, but he's doing it third quarter, so it won't be announced until after the primary is over. So it's actually pretty sneaky the way Andrew Bailey is taking, money at this point. Will Scharf took it up front. And so at any rate, we'll discuss that next Saturday night, though. We're going to concentrate really hard on Attorney General. And I'll have a lot of information to bring forth, and I'll probably have made my own personal decision, but I can be swayed. So if someone wants to come in here and help change my mind, you're welcome to do so, because this is a group effort. But we will keep doing this for the next 3 weeks. We're going to keep talking about the people running for statewide office. We'll talk about local Senate and House districts as well. I think there's a lot to go on there. And just so you know, Aaron Dorr sent me an email and gave me permission to use all of his videos that he is currently doing for Second Amendment vetting of people running for office to repost them on the Missouri Freedom Initiative. So I will do so because I appreciate his work a great deal. And let's not let it go to waste. Let's make sure that it gets to everyone it needs to for Second Amendment issues, because that's near and dear to the Missouri Freedom Initiative's heart as well. But I think at this point I'm going to have to shut her down for Junebug genocide. For those who don't know what that is, My wife and I have a lot of fruit trees in our yard, and they're under attack right now. It's a concerted effort. I think Russia has something to do with it. I'm not sure, though. But the June bugs land on the leaves of the trees and eat up the leaves. Since my wife and I don't
Are they June bugs or are they the Japanese beetles?
Nope,
The
it's
Japanese
June bugs.
Beetles will do that. They are.
Yep.
Okay.
So, so
Chickens.
we don't use pesticides and insecticides and herbicides. We don't use that on our property. We stay as natural as possible.
You pick them off one by one.
We do with our bare hands. Just pick them off, and we have bags that hold them. Yeah, some people are grossed out by it. But at the same time, if we do this 2 years in a row, because there's a 2-year cycle for June bugs, from eggs to grubs to June bugs, next year it should be significantly lower. But the fact is, we just don't want to spray our trees. I mean, we love our trees. We do not want to put poisons on our trees. We eat the fruit from those trees.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we manually pull the June bugs off, and that's what we call June bug genocide. People have asked me to guess how many we think we have gotten. Last year, it was probably close to 20,000, and this year we've already hit that as well. So,
have you figured out how to fry them and eat them so that you eat the bugs?
No, I won't be eating the
You will
bugs.
eat the bugs.
In
I
fact,
tell you what, the best way,
go ahead.
the absolute best way to eat the bugs is you feed the bugs to the chickens.
Yeah.
That's
and then
right.
eat the
The eggs
chickens.
and you eat the chickens.
Well, you see, I'm just saying we're picking them off the tree and putting them in bags. I'm not saying anything beyond that. Nothing.
Okay.
Yep.
Sea
So I'm
bugs
not
are
talking
alright, though.
about
I mean,
sulfur,
crabs.
saltpeter, manganese, or anything
Okay.
else. Just
Yeah.
so.
If Pat offers you a bag of some kind of flour, don't take it.
Yeah. So, but at any rate, so that's unfortunately that started about a month ago. And by the way, it's been 5 weeks since we did a live stream. So thank you for coming back, everybody. I love all of you, appreciate all of you. We got family stuff going on in Minnesota that we're dealing with as well.
Yeah.
But I should
Prayers
be
for
here.
your dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so prayers for my dad are very much appreciated. His heart is only at 15%, and it's not going to get better. So that's the last time he went into the I was in New Hampshire when my dad went into the hospital. It was congestive heart failure, but it was a large sac around the heart and lungs and did a lot of damage. So at any rate, but I've been, chatting more frequently with my dad, which is good. I needed to do that anyway. But he tells me every time I talk to him, I really miss your mom. And so, and I do too. But when he says that, it has a different connotation to me. It's like, he's like, I need to be with your mom again, kind of a thing. And so yeah, it just feels, I'm not sure that's what he means. But it feels that way, and it hurts a little bit. I only have one parent left.
Sure.
So at any rate, that's kind of what's been going on here. I've been helping out Mike Moon with his campaign quite a bit. Just so you guys know, on the 27th of July, and I'm saying July correctly, 27th of July, we actually have a door knock for Bill Eigel, but it will also be for Mike Moon, for Lori Rook, and for Denny Hoskins in Clever, Missouri. And it'll be very structured. Clever's a small town. And but it's great. If you've never knocked on doors before, I encourage you to come to this one on the 27th of June. And I know for some of you that's a long drive and everything. It won't be a very long day though, because there's only about 350 homes clustered very closely together in Clever. That's why it's a great area to actually to teach people how to door knock and stuff like that, and just show them, get the feel of it, and get into that groove and everything. But so at any rate, it's kind of a hybrid idea I had, and everyone's agreeable to it. So basically, I'll be wearing a Bill Eigel shirt. It's an official Bill Eigel door knock. But holy gosh, am I supportive of Moon as well. So Moon push cards go out with that as well. Lori Rooks go out. Lori Rook will be in Vernon County that day, so we can't get her here for the door knock. But my understanding is that Bob Titus is going to come for the door knock. And Eigel already had something scheduled, but we'll get someone from Eigel's team here to help with that. And we'll have breakfast at my house in the morning So before the door knock, and but at any rate, that's kind of the plan. So I guess what I'm really saying right now, if you guys believe in a candidate, particularly if they're sending Rhino money into another candidate to try and kill your candidate, like in the case of Mike Moon. Mike Moon has a Rhino candidate running against him because it doesn't make sense for the Republicans to run someone against Mike Moon. He is, the quintessential conservative voter. Yet they do. And so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of Mike Moon. And Mike Moon is willing to stand up and filibuster. And that's another reason they want to get rid of Mike Moon. But the same thing is happening to Rick Bratton right now. So I want to extend this. If anyone is in Rick Bratton's area, and if you have some time to help with door knocking or putting up signs for Rick, please help Rick. His district is far from mine, but I am not opposed to getting a day and going up there and helping out with a door knock. And I'm not really big on putting up signs, gang. And, I was talking to Ron Calzone recently where he was saying, hey, you should help put up signs. And I said, hey, you should door knock. Door knocking is where I shine. Putting up signs, basically is not my favorite thing to do. It's kind of boring. I prefer the interaction. And so at any rate, anything you can do to help the candidates you believe in, they need your help. And remember now, we're trying to clean up the Missouri legislature. And it's not just about legislation. We also need to support the people that are going to help us with that legislation. So that's incumbent upon all of us. And I want to thank everybody out there who is doing something to help their local politicians, because a lot of them do need that very, very badly. And I'm not just talking about money here. Anyone can throw money at a candidate. I'm talking about an investment of your time. That says a lot more to those candidates, I think, unless you're a multimillionaire and you're giving them, like $100,000. That means a lot to them. Trust me, that means a lot to them. But if you can give them a day of your time and go knock doors for them, that's huge. If you can give up a day of your time and put up signs for them, that's huge. These are the things that they need before the primaries. After the primaries are over, the strategy changes. And we'll talk about that when the primaries are over. For the next 3 weeks, we will keep talking about everyone who's running in the Missouri primaries, at least on the state side. But I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, especially we had Isaac in. He had dropped out. And so Shane is with us. We have Voodoo Queen. Of course, we have Catherine Dreyer, the one and only, coming in tonight. That's really, really wonderful to see you again, Catherine.
Thank you.
And, of course, Caleb, also known as Liberty Revolutionary, and all of you checking in on all of the socials. Thank you so much for joining us. May God bless each and every one of you. Take care, gang.